Welcome to the Customer Excellence Podcast. I am your host, Jack Malacco. Today, I am joined with a very special guest, Greg Skirving. Greg, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Jack. Glad to be here.
Greg is a customer support leader, if you'll call him that. He's got 20 years experience in leadership, and I like to say, before we had this conversation, I classify people in two categories: those who know their stuff and those who don't know their stuff. Greg seems to be one of those kind of people that knows his stuff. So hopefully we're going to have a very good conversation today. Greg is going to sort of tell us his story, how he got to where he is today, and all of the lessons he's learned along the way. So without further ado, Greg, we have about 13 questions here on the docket today. I've got right in front of me. We're going to start from the very beginning and just with a little bit of background. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, where you came from, and how you got to where you are right now, and how you got started in customer support?
Well, first of all, thanks for the kind words about sounding like I know what I talk about, and I think that comes from a lot of trial and error. So, a little bit about me and my career. I've been in technology companies, always customer facing. I like to think of customer engagement through the life cycle as happening in three phases or 3 days. Day one, you sell something. Day two, you implement and configure and deliver. And day three, there's ongoing care. While I'm in day three right now, doing customer support, customer success, I have worked in all three of those. I've done implementation. I've done field work. I sold for two different companies, managed partners. And that's been really important in my career to interface with customers at different phases, number one. Also, it's proved invaluable in dealing with people within my own organization. The saying goes, you don't really know until you've walked a mile in a man or a woman's shoes. And I've, except for HR and finance, I've pretty much done that all and made mistakes in all of them. So.
Yeah, and you talk about those mistakes. We'll talk about that in a little bit more as we learn the lessons from the mistakes that we've made along the way. But I wanted to know what makes you and the companies that you've worked for customer focused?
Yeah, simply put, perspective. What's really interesting is it's so easy to get caught up in the support role and lose track of the other side of the engagement. I mean, we talk about tickets and we talk about time to close and time to resolve and KB linking and CSAT, and it goes on and on and on and on. And the simplicity of the support role, from a leader perspective, I just connect customers with problems to people who solve the problems, and the people who solve the problems, they just should solve the problem. So I'm pretty particular to use terms like customer issue and not ticket, and navigating customers to closure and their issue and our ticket. So and it's a mindset, really, and dealing with customers, if they sense that all we're worried about is just hacking through and closing cases, they become unresponsive. They're not willing participants, and people don't understand why. And the irony of the whole thing is, in our daily lives, we're all customers. We're all on that other side of the fence. So for me, being customer focused and leading a team that's customer focused means take a second and look at what the customer sees in you supporting them.
Right. So you sort of put yourself in their shoes, as it were. I get that.
Yep.
It's wonderful. Now, we talked about those mistakes earlier, Greg. Let's go back into those, because oftentimes we make decisions that don't necessarily work out the way we expect them to. Now, in your career, Greg, I got to ask, what decision, if you want to just focus on one big one, have you made that led to a, unexpected outcome?
Yeah, I can think of things where I've made a decision with the outcome, but in terms of the mistakes themselves, probably the biggest one is, and obviously do a little bit of a mentorship with newer leaders. And one of the things I try and instill is be a coach, be a mentor. When you have your first managerial job, there's I don't know where it comes from, but there's a kind of a belief that I'm the manager and you're the employee and I tell you to do things and you do it. And I kind of equate that to Newton's third law. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. And the harder you push I think that's really the difference between a manager and a leader. The harder you push, the harder people push back. And when you can remove that and yet have people be accountable for what they do and be happy with their accomplishments, that's critical. So in terms of, biggest mistakes early in my career, I did that. And then you realize, hey, wait a minute, I need to enable people. I need to support them. I need to challenge them, but you just can't simply, run your shop like the military.
Right. There's that happy medium between, like you said, manager and leader. And it's important to find that difference. Is there a specific way that you yourself have found how to be a leader and not push too hard on those that you're supporting?
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone's different. I think, and again, I'll harken back to early in my leadership days. We're taught that, we have processes and systems and people should follow them. And we're taught that numbers, metrics, we look at that and that's the law. And when you get right down to it, it's understanding your people, understanding relative potential, not gauging everybody with the same yardstick. Number one, and number two, truly knowing what motivates people, what turns them off. How do you put them in a situation where they can be as successful as possible? So I think that's probably the biggest thing, the biggest takeaway from my career and what I like to help with new managers, new leaders.
Gotcha. Sounds like it's a variable approach for each situation, which is a good thing to have. It's good to be flexible. Speaking of approaches, I wanted to ask you, what approach do you use when you're stuck in a bad situation? Say something's happened, a mistake has happened. How do you approach those bad situations?
Yeah, I'll approach that from two perspectives. Obviously, a customer escalation, and in which case you stop, figure out what's going on, make sure you're in constant communication with the customer. What I would consider sort of basic escalation processes, but making sure that you're in control, showing progress, and always communicating. But of more significance is, again, I'll go back to dealing with people, and I call it an undesired outcome. So oftentimes people get a red CSAT or a bad CSAT, or there'll be an escalation, and that doesn't necessarily mean that the decisions and the actions of the individual led to that. Sometimes customers just get ticked off. Right. So I do a two-tier forensics where I again, using perspective, what did you see? Here's what happened, and tell me the decisions you made. Tell me the actions that you did. And frequently I go, you know what? You did everything that we've asked of you, and this is just one of those situations. Or, and this is where it gets really interesting, you listen to somebody and they say, well, I followed this process. And I say, you know what? I think we need to change that. I think you're right. So again, not assuming anything, working with your people so that they're honest with you and they don't feel intimidated, getting through that manager boss or manager employee thing, and working with people and figuring out where the issues are. So,
yeah, there can definitely be a real fear between an employee and a manager, and I think breaking that down is essential.
Huge.
To a great relationship and to really have a good business strategy is to be able to actually listen to your employees, which is fantastic. Greg, what are, in your opinion, the most challenging parts about working in customer support?
I think consistent execution across the team. And by that, I don't mean rigorously following processes, but I mean providing the same experience to customers, regardless of who they are, regardless of where they are in the world. I've worked in organizations where you have a follow the sun model, and you could get customers calling in from anywhere, and they should receive the same experience. So while I celebrate individual, I call it the what and the how. I mean, at the end of the day, we solve customer problems. How we go about it, I give a lot of freedom, but there are some things that need to be consistent so that as an organization, we provide that excellent level of service. And again, people are individuals and they see things differently, maybe act differently. There's some things that need to be consistently done. And again, let me do the context on that. That's in a global company with different support teams and different cultures and things like that. It's tough.
Yeah, working across cultures is pretty difficult sometimes. I mean, we know that here at SupportNinja, we work in the Philippines and are looking to go international beyond that. Each one comes with its own set of challenges. But along from those challenges, I mean, what lessons have you learned from these challenging issues?
Yeah, a couple of things. And I always go back to people and making sure that people truly understand. I do a lot of facilitation as well, and I'm not a presenter. I don't stand at the podium and hope you get it. I need something back that says that you understand what I'm saying. And if you don't, no problem. And talking about, I think you touched on that. I'll call it the trust and the relationship you have with your employees. If they truly are not afraid to say, geez, Greg, I don't know. That's really where you want to be when you get odd answers and maybe answering different questions. That trust is in there, so you have to work on that. So again, with people, but with systems and processes, that's critical to identify a problem, but you need to fashion a solution. Again, I do have a bit of experience, and I can walk into most support organizations and identify where the problems are, but that's only half the battle. You have to say, there's a problem. You have a problem with this, and it's so easy to go. In my last job, we did it like this, and just try and shove something in and cookie cutter it in. So experience teaches you to identify the issues, but now you really need to sit down and say, how do we fashion a process or a system or a solution to address that challenge within this company? That's probably one of the biggest lessons I've learned too.
They're good lessons to learn, and I hope the listeners and the watchers take that to heart. It's good things to know. Greg, let's shift gears a little bit. As with this is a collaboration between Support Driven and SupportNinja, we talk about communities, right? We want to know who's helped you along the way in your career. Was it your team, your mentor, a community like something like Support Driven, or were there any resources that you relied on, like books, podcasts, things like that?
Yeah, it's a great question. I can tell you I haven't really read a lot. Excuse me. snippets here and there. I think early on in my career, people would say, "Hey, you need to read this book or you need to read that," and I would do it, but I think I was even too prescriptive, because a book is somebody's interpretation and recipe. Again, I think that's a mistake people make is they'll take something and they'll try and implement it in every situation. I like to work more on concepts and techniques. So again, I do a bit of mentoring, and I always talk about the concept. What are we really trying to achieve? And then there's a bunch of different ways we could do that. So I think early on in my career, I did a lot of things on trial and error. Again, made mistakes, but have had the persistence to get through and achieve the desired result. I will say that in the past, it was about 18 months, a colleague of mine talked about, because I'm always talking about taking care of your team, and he said to me, Richard Branson says that. And I said, oh, yeah? So I picked up a couple of his books, and actually, if you see my LinkedIn profile, I've got one of his quotes there. Customers don't come first. Your people do. Take care of your people, and they'll take care of your customers. So that was a great read. He's practical about his leadership style, and doesn't overcomplicate things. I think oftentimes we overcomplicate, and I think he's been pretty successful in his career at keeping it simple.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's something to that trial and error versus prep, read book, and then just apply little bits and pieces and take that as gospel. There's really something to just trying something out and seeing if it works, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah, and again, like I said, you can't cookie cutter something and just stick it in every situation. So pick up a technique here, understand the concept, use that technique, and apply it.
Yeah, don't just use it verbatim because it doesn't apply in every situation. Absolutely. Exactly. Greg, over the course of your career, which I've got your LinkedIn resume right here, just happen to have that in my homework. Looks like you've had quite the career. How have you grown throughout your experience in all these different roles?
Well, like I say, being able to experience the customer at all different phases has been invaluable. And I will tell you that, and I'm assuming most of the people listening to this would be more on the support side and not on the dark side. But I'll tell you, sales is a critical role and one of the most misunderstood roles. I'll also tell you that there really is no difference between support and sales, except for you don't have to convince the customer they have a problem in support, right? It's still basic problem solving. So that helped me grow. And dealing with, like I said, leading people, understanding that people are individuals, that really helped me grow. I've been exposed to systems and projects and things like that, and being involved in things like that. So you learn about the structure and the supporting tools and processes. That's also helped, and just experience. Just get involved in as many things as you can, and soak up as much as you can.
Absolutely. I think there really is something to that part of viewing the whole process of support through the sales people's eyes, because it really is a pretty similar world in more respects than one, don't you think? We work pretty closely with our sales team here at SupportNinja, and it seems like a lot of what they apply in their techniques of sales actually can carry over pretty well into the world of customer support.
It's really interesting that you say that. In sales, you close deals. In support, we close tickets now. We don't close the ticket until the customer has said, "Thanks for helping me out, Jack. Your involvement is no longer required." But it's uncanny the same. There's positioning, there's negotiation, there's persuasion used in both of those. There's a lot more sales in support than people actually think.
Oh, yeah. I think it all goes back to interpersonal skills, right? Whether
Indeed.
you're communicating through an email, a text, or over video like we are right now, to be able to understand the pathos, ethos, and logos of the customer or the client that you're trying to sell to is, I think, invaluable. And it's a good idea to understand it so that you can do the process correctly.
Absolutely. And I will close with this. The best salespeople I ever worked with earn the right to ask for the close. I tell my support people that, you earn the right to ask the customer if you can close your ticket because their problem has been solved.
Absolutely. I've got a lot of respect for those in sales. Greg, let's go a little bit big picture now. Now, you don't have to have an immediate answer for this one. This one's a little bit of a thinker. We want to know, what do you think is going to be the next big thing in the world of customer support?
I would say various applications of artificial intelligence. I know a lot of companies have bots and things like that, but recently I've become aware of organizations that can analyze all of the streams of data, be that ticketing data, voice, and pick up on the intonations of people, show you a dashboard of ostensibly customer temperature, all from using artificial intelligence to analyze the communication feeds. I think that is something that's definitely new. I mean, we can do CSAT, we can do NPS, we can do strategic and relational things, and that's one thing. And that's a little bit skewed. So that's something that I came across recently that I found very interesting. And we'll see if that technology takes off.
Yeah, it'll definitely be interesting to see that if it does ultimately get implemented on a large scale. You almost have to wonder, is AI going to start replacing service agents or support agents? Makes you really think. Kind of turns the whole industry on its head if we start getting rid of support agents. Hopefully we don't. I've got a soft spot for support agents.
I do too, of course, and we'll always need them. I don't, and I think, it's. I'll just take a moment. When you define support means different things to different people, and there's the hardcore approach where we confirm and remediate hardware and software defects. That's it. Anything else, talk to somebody else, or go to the user forum, or go to the knowledge base. So depending on how you've conditioned and trained your customer base, AI with bots and chat, and that can be very valuable in terms of. It's fundamentally a KBE lookup is what they're doing, right? But when you get into complex situations, we're going to need humans for still a long time. Oh yeah. We're always going to need that human connection, I think. As much as we want to push towards the future of AI, I think there's absolutely something to be said about talking to a human over the phone or over video. Greg, let's shift gears one more time, something a little bit more fun. Because this can be, to put it bluntly, it can be kind of a tough industry, the customer support industry. How, in your experience, have you kept things positive or kept things fun in the roles that you've held? Yeah, well, I think we've touched on it a couple of times about trust and making a connection with your people. So every day I reach out on it's got to be Slack now because we're all remote, but I make it a point to talk to everybody on my team about a non-work item every day. Just, how was your weekend? How's the such and such? How was your kid's soccer tournament? Whatever. Again, knowing people, and because it says director of technical support on my business card, but that's not what I am. I'm a leader, but more appropriately, I'm a coach and I'm a mentor. And if I'm viewed as a a manager, that means that, number one, there's a distance. Number two, people won't be accountable for their work. Number three, they'll always look to me to do the job. So I purposefully separate that. And again, we can have fun. So I like talking about different things. I have interests, and I like to talk about the other interests. And when possible, I like doing team lunches and things like that. It's tough to take the whole team out when there's nobody watching your customers, but you get creative on things like that.
Absolutely, it's about keeping that social interaction. Greg, I want to know another bigger idea. We ask this to a lot of people. What's one common customer support myth that you'd like to demystify? And if you don't have one, that's fine. But there seems to be a lot of perceptions about this industry that people don't really understand, that those of us who are on the inside know the truth, right? And we wanted to demystify these things. So if there's one, I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on it.
I was immediately thinking a couple of operational ones but the way you asked that question's given me a little different scope. Let me start at the 40,000 foot level. Every company that sells something provides the consumer with instructions. You buy a car, you open the glove box. There's a book in there. Maybe now it's moved to a CD or a DVD, and what have you. But it teaches you how to troubleshoot your vehicle, how to maintain it, how to use it. You buy a TV, same thing. I've worked for companies that there's typically been an on-site component, but even if it's SaaS, you need to provide information to your customers for various purposes. I think support is misunderstood as being a cost center, but the reality in what we do and I'll go back to day one sell, day two implement, and day three ongoing care, is invaluable in shaping the opinions of our customers. So I think people look at standing up a knowledge base to deflect. Well, we're not really looking to deflect. We're looking to provide self-service options for our customers. I just think overall, we have to provide customers with information and I don't want to say support, assistance with how to use their product, how to maintain it, how to fix it, and that falls on us. That falls on, like you say, the people in the know. And the better we do with that, the better the experience. And if you're really good, if you're truly in that rarefied air of customer service excellence, that can be a deal breaker in terms of winning business, winning RMAs, and getting yourself into situations where new customers will choose you over other potential customers or vendors rather, because of your support. So, yeah,
it really does make all the difference sometimes. Something that people might not even think about. Who's going to take care of them when something goes wrong?
Absolutely.
Greg, I've got one final question for you. And you touched on this term in your last answer. What does the term customer excellence mean to you?
Well, a lot of the things that I just talked about, it's an attitude, and it is cohesion across the whole organization. Again, having worked in all different facets, I know when I go to implement something, I know that to win that business, maybe there's a couple of things that I'm going to need to stick handle in that implementation. But I also understand that we wouldn't have won the business I wouldn't have had a chance to stick handle around a couple of things if we didn't win the business. So I'm not about to throw it over the fence and say, go talk to the sales guy. The system doesn't do that, right? And then from an ongoing support perspective, somebody needs to look after customers. I think you said it very well. Somebody needs to look after customers, and support is inherently reactive. Success is proactive, and there are other points, account management and sales to some degree. But being reactive doesn't mean we need to be an afterthought. We have way more effect on how customers view an organization when they look at SupportNinja. They look at how the sales process was, how the website is, how is it easy to create a ticket, how do I renew, how was my last support ticket, when things are really in trouble, what's the responsiveness from SupportNinja in this case, right? And if customers not regret, but don't want to call, we'll do everything before if they say, oh, God, I tried everything. It's like, well, we're going to have to get on the phone with SupportNinja. That's the opposite. So we want them going, you know what, let's try a few things. And you know what, if we can't figure it out, let's give Jack a call. He'll be able to help us out.
I think that's
perspective again.
That is excellently put, Greg. Thank you so much for joining us today and teaching us a little bit more about what customer excellence is. Is there a place where we can connect with you online, Greg, if our listeners or our watchers want to connect with you?
Absolutely. Well, again, thanks, Jack, for having me. I appreciate it. It was good spending the time with you. I am on Support Driven. Greg Skirving, you can DM me, and LinkedIn as well. So
perfect. We'll put those links in the show notes. Thank you again for everyone who's watched. And if you listened, thank you so much for listening. Greg, thank you for your time. Appreciate everything so much.